Hi, my name's Mark Neelan. I'm a director of Finlay James, the technology sales executive search firm. I'm joined today by Jonathan Gaskell, who works for LinkedIn and has very kindly agreed to come and give us an answer on the question we're always getting asked, which is, how do I get headhunted on LinkedIn? So, welcome, Johnny.
Thank you very much, Mark.
All right, so I'm just going to throw it straight to you, really. What would be your biggest number one tip in terms of how to be found, or how to help the dream job find you, how to get headhunted?
Sure. It's a great question because a lot of people on LinkedIn aren't actively looking for a job, don't want their current bosses to know that they're looking for a role. But I think certainly, just for context's sake, it's a case these days of if, not when. When, not if you move roles. So having the basics, such as a complete profile, something that shows who you are as a professional, and not just a cog in the machine of a particular company. Our founder, Reid Hoffman's vision was, putting the brand back into individuals, rather than just faceless corporations doing business all over the world. So. Long answer to a short question, which is how do you end up being headhunted? Make sure that you have your profile written in a style that isn't so much a CV, but something that tells something about your career history, your career timeline, your interests, a bit more about your personality as well. Getting a punchy headline in there, while also the search engine optimization element of making sure that the keywords around your experience, the right type of job title is in there. A finance officer to somebody, or an IT sales professional to somebody, can mean an IT director to somebody else.
So what you're saying essentially is that you need to ensure for keyword density, if you like, that the right words are in there.
Yep.
But that it also tells a story.
Absolutely, because I think there's a great slide that we show, which is an example of what not to do with your profile, right. And it's an individual that has simply put IT director in their profile as many times, about 150 times.
Yeah, right.
Just to essentially show up at the top of each search. Now, just because you show up at the top of the search, it doesn't necessarily mean that person's going to be contacted. Yeah. It just looks ridiculous. Yeah. It doesn't even look like a CV, let alone a real-time LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
So having the right keywords in there at the right time is, of course, absolutely vital. But there isn't any need to go overboard.
Yeah.
Our algorithms are very, very smart in the sense that they understand a lot more than just simply somebody writing that they're in IT sales.
I mean, you obviously worked in search before you joined LinkedIn. What are the worst things that you've ever seen on a profile?
So one of the worst things on a profile is not having a photo.
Right.
Faces are certainly more recognisable than names. You're more memorable than names.
I asked one specific headhunter of what puts you off, and believe it or not, she turned around and said that recently she had a candidate who, within the profile picture, I think there was a Dalmatian dog in there with her.
Yeah.
So you do see some weird and wacky things.
Absolutely. No one wants to see pictures of you, sort of out on the beers on a Friday night. That profile picture has to be professional.
Yeah.
So she's absolutely right.
Yeah. And the whole thing about, we get asked a lot, how can I get headhunted? How can I make sure? How can LinkedIn help me ensure that you give me a call when the dream job crosses your bow? And I always think that LinkedIn is a tool to help you be found.
Yeah.
So what else can you do apart from having a really good profile to be a bit proactive about people being able to find you?
Yeah, again, absolutely. So it's about contributing to the network.
Yeah.
So having a great profile that's 100% complete is the first step. But getting endorsements, people to essentially agree with what you've done, recommend your work at certain places, not just where you're currently working, but previously in previous roles, adding a personal touch to those recommendations, ensuring that they're varied. So if you are in IT sales, getting a recommendation from a client, but also getting a recommendation from perhaps someone from whom the products that you buy is, I suppose, from my limited knowledge of IT sales professionals, maybe two different examples rather than just two or three of the same. I worked with Mark here. He was great. His something about the customer service that's provided on one recommendation versus the product that's been sold in another recommendation. Things like that. That extends to the types of groups that you join as well and contribute to, not just from selling and from a commercial point of view, but also from the types of discussions that you might start around the new operating system for Apple, the iOS 6, for example, things like that.
You mentioned recommendations and referrals. When I asked our headhunters again, what are some of the most attractive things, the most compelling reasons to call a potential candidate when you've got a really good vacancy? Recommendations featured very, very highly. I think would you agree with me that they're almost currency for a good sales guy?
If they're done right, absolutely.
What is the new skills and endorsement feature all about? Are they intended to replace recommendations?
Not at all, no. They are intended to work in tandem with recommendations. So recommendations are very subjective. They take time. You have to sit down and really think about what you're going to write about that person that you're recommending. A skill, from a time consumption point of view, takes 2 seconds. And they are more along the lines of essentially verifying someone's integrity, saying yes, I do agree with that person in the sense that they have a skill such as social selling or selling to IT, the IT sector. Yes, I'm going to endorse that. That is verifying their integrity. A recommendation is something that you are making yourself, but essentially composing yourself.
So if I am an IT salesperson, if I have got lots of people have actually clicked the button and endorsed those skills, will that mean that I appear higher up in search results, making it easier for me to be found?
I don't believe it does, not yet. So you can't search through endorsements at the moment. It's fairly new as of today, so there isn't a search functionality on that. Watch this space, I suppose. But what it does do is you talk about the 10-second window in which it takes a headhunter to make up their mind. If next to IT sales is several endorsements from that person, it's like on eBay when you check the seller rating. Immediately you're drawn to it, and it's hopefully retains the interest of that headhunter, so that past the 10-second mark, they're scrutinising that profile in a bit more detail.
What our headhunters have said about it is they've said that they found it really useful in terms of candidates have quite liked it when we've endorsed their skills, if we know they're a good candidate in whatever way. I've had other people say to me that this could lend itself to just kind of mutual back scratching.
It can, absolutely.
Which some people could argue that makes it relatively pointless.
It makes it completely moot. I think the simple takeaway here is don't do back-to-back recommendations or endorsements. The reason for that is if you recommend me, Mark, and then I recommend you back, it looks silly. So if you recommend me, no offence, I'm not going to recommend you back because that's going to degrade both of our integrities. Sure. However, you might want to go and recommend someone else with whom we've mutually worked, so that again the community in which the IT sales community sees us as as serious players, even though we don't share the same business.
What about your connections? How can your connections and who you are connected with help you be found by the headhunter?
So they can. So the power of the referral within LinkedIn is, on one of the foundations in which we were built. It's an ecosystem that has grown organically. Yeah. Good people know good people. Yeah. So if I am being approached by a headhunter, and that opportunity isn't particularly right for me at that at that particular time, the chances of me saying, well, why don't you go and speak to Mark? He plays in the same area as I do. I may be interested or may not know somebody again. So it's the referral business, okay, ultimately.
And I think it's interesting how much the referrals and recommendations does come up.
Yeah.
So I think I know from speaking to our headhunters, you have been a headhunter.
Yeah.
I've headhunted before.
Yeah.
I think the main thing that people need to realise is that if you want the dream job to find you, then you need to make sure that your profile is right up to scratch.
Yeah.
There are very valid recommendations.
Yeah.
And that there are no horrendous errors on there.
Of course.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I think this time last year we were saying that when people updated their profiles, it was because they were getting ready to move roles. Now that's not necessarily the case, so that does make it slightly more difficult for a headhunter to recognise somebody's passive to active behaviour. But I think you want the right types of roles to find you through the jobs you may be interested in module, if you like, which is on everybody's profile homepage. You can click on those roles and you can appraise those roles as well by saying whether or not they are applicable for you. They take into account your entire career history. Yeah. So if you're an IT sales professional but have taken a year off to do some charity work, that's your most recent occupation. It's still going to take into account the fact that you've got 10 years IT sales professional experience previously. However, if you click on those roles, and I'm talking about the jobs module, which is on the right-hand side about a third of the way down everyone's homepage when they log on to LinkedIn. It's called Jobs You May Be Interested In. There's 3 roles that are advertised, and they're constantly changing every time you refresh your page. Yeah. But they will be relevant to you, as I say, as a member and as a professional based on your profile data. Yeah. If you find that those jobs aren't quite hitting the mark, you can actually feedback, and the algorithm that we use will get smarter in terms of then focusing on different areas of your profile, so that ultimately those headhunters that are potentially posting those roles, because they are used as a marketing tool rather than the typical job board philosophy, those roles will hopefully modify themselves and tweak themselves to become more relevant to what it is you're looking for your next move.
Okay, all right. Thanks very much, Johnny, and thanks for coming in and giving us an inside track in terms of how people can be headhunted, how you can help the dream job find you almost.
No problem.
I hope that's helpful for you. Ensure your profile is up to scratch, ensure your picture is good, help yourself out with keywords, and good luck, and we hope that the right job can come and find you soon.